Hi, and greetings from what is clearly not Toronto. Yeah, I stayed an extra week in Florida and am really enjoying this fantastic weather and seeing what trees look like with leaves on them. Yeah, it's been a long time. Anyway, it's been a few days since the conference ended, and I've had some time to think about my reflections on day 3, as well as the conference on a whole, which is what this video is going to be about. So day 3 went a little differently than my plan. I had originally intended to go to these 2 concurrent sessions in a row. It was Video 101 and Video 102. And I think the idea was really great. You'd go to Video 101, it would teach you the basics of video, and then you go to Video 102 immediately afterwards, and you'd build on the skills of what you learned in the last session. So cool concept. I looked at the session materials, and clearly I'm already doing YouTube videos. I've got some of the basics down pat. I thought maybe this isn't the right session for me. But amazing idea. I would love to see conferences do this more often. Anyway, so what did I go to? Well, the first session I went to was called Content Curation, Social Learning, and Modern Training Strategy. The speaker was Nadim Elim. I'm going to be honest, this was the one session at this conference where I felt like the description didn't actually match the session itself. The session spent a lot of time talking about learning theory, a little bit of time on social learning curation, and a bit of time on LMSs. Not exactly what I had hoped for, but these things happen at conferences. I actually wish that the speaker had done sort of a maybe learning theory 101 for people who didn't have an education background, because he covered quite a bit of that in the session, and it would have been great if people had known, well, that's what that session was going to talk a lot about, and he could have gone into even more detail. And, well, I've got 2 education degrees. I probably didn't need that, but if you don't have an education background, this is great information to have. So then the next session I went to was a Bring Your Own Laptop session, and it was on creating your own badges by the speaker was Valerie DePaul. This session was a lot of fun. Most of you know I'm a big gamer, and so that means I've had a lot of experiences with badges, some of which are terrible and gimmicky, don't mean anything, and some of which are really fantastic indicators of the skills that you've demonstrated or the things that you've achieved in game. And so I'm pretty big, supporter of badges when they're used strategically and thoughtfully. We ended up looking at a really fantastic tool called Credly. It's a website, so it's credly.com, Credly, and it's a web-based tool for both creating your own badges out of pre-created design resources, so great for those of you who aren't artists out there, but it's also a platform for sharing those badges with other people. And I played with it in the session. I played with the free version. It looks like there's a subscription that you can get as well. I didn't have a chance to play with that. The free version was great and super easy to use. One thing that me and the colleague I was there with were talking about is how interesting it would be to use badges like this as sort of a personal portfolio of the skills that you have, and that way you could show to other people, both in the workplace that you're at, and even if it was something that was universally acknowledged, other workplaces, what specific skills within instructional design you have. Because let's be honest, instructional design, it is a huge, huge industry, and you can't know every single skill in it. So badges could be a great quick way to show what you know. So finally, there was the keynote session, and it was design thinking to enhance learning. The speaker was Juliette Lematin, and her talk was about a project she's working on called Project Breaker. And it's an experiential learning program for people in their mid to late teens and early 20s, where they use design thinking to approach a challenge and then try and create a business. And this is a for-profit business that would work to address that challenge. It was really, the kids and young adults engaged in this were incredibly invested in it. It seems like a great way to reach students who otherwise may have been disengaged from school. There's a lot of talk in the back channel that people would have loved to have seen schools doing this, just schools in general. I will say I've been to a lot of really more unusual schools, so art schools, alternative schools in Toronto, the school I went to for my grad program, and those schools are leveraging this idea of experiential learning and design thinking. It was a fantastic learning experience for me when I was in those schools. So it's not that schools aren't doing this at all, it's just not all of them, but I can definitely say from my own experience, I thought they were great ways to make school much more interesting and real life focused. I also think design thinking is something that we should be looking at using more in our industry, particularly from the perspective of prototyping and also from doing focus groups and really understanding who we're designing content for. Design thinking is this amazing way to do projects that are really focused on a specific need and meeting that need, not just what we think might meet that need. And the prototyping and user focus groups are great ways to find out and challenge maybe what your preconceptions are of the project and maybe find some solutions that you wouldn't have otherwise. I mentioned earlier that I'm a big gamer. Video game industry is one that uses this kind of thinking and this kind of prototyping and iterative design to their credit. And video games start out as one thing, and through focus testing and prototyping and alphas and betas, they can turn out pretty differently based on that information, and they typically turn out for the better. So I'd love to see more design thinking happening in our industry. One thing that some of us were talking about on the back channel is the idea of, wouldn't it be cool if there were design thinking workshops at conferences in the future? So instead of going to a concurrent session, you could go to a workshop session where you'd be given a problem, maybe a serious one in our industry, or maybe something just for fun to get you used to design thinking. And then you with a bunch of other people at the conference would use prototyping and focus groups and stuff like that and the design thinking approach to try and come up with a cool new solution to that problem. And then each group could share. You know, it wouldn't replace concurrent sessions, but it would be a really nifty add-on for some conferences and something I'd love to participate in the future. So just a thought, throwing it out there. And thanks to everyone else on Twitter who thought this was super cool too. So that was the last day. Let's talk a little bit about the conference on a whole. So this is my third Learning Solutions, and I feel the same way about it now as I did in the past. It's a really, really fantastic conference. What makes it special is its size. It's big enough where you get a good diversity of concurrent sessions and speakers and people to meet, but it's small enough where you really can connect individually to a bunch of the people you meet and a bunch of speakers that you see in a way that's harder to at some of the bigger conferences. So that's what's really going for it, and it's one of the reasons that I recommend to people who are going to a learning conference for the first time that Learning Solutions is probably your best bet for that. Still feel that way now. There's this co-location thing that I'm a little still confused about, where the Ecosystems conference is co-located within Learning Solutions, and Ecosystems people can go to any of the Learning Solutions sessions, but Learning Solutions people can't go to the Ecosystems sessions. And I'm going to be honest, I worry that that siloing isn't helping us, but maybe there's some reason behind it I don't know about. Not sure. It's the second year in a row I think they've done it, and I'm still unsure. Would love to know more about that. But other than that one little weird thing, I really loved this conference a lot. I love the people I meet there. I think everyone is so friendly, and I will say, if you're a first-time speaker too, this is a great conference to do your first concurrent session talk at, because the audience is so supportive and they clearly want every speaker they see to succeed. So once again, love Learning Solutions. Can definitely see myself going back. So that's it for this video. I will keep posting videos because this experiment seems to be going really well. Have a great day. See you online or in person. Bye-bye.